Alchemy Wizard. Let's cover cleaning the distiller today. It's very important to clean your distiller for whatever you're using it for, be it laboratory use like I use for making my colloidals here, or for the vaporizers and the various breathing machines. They all need distilled water to operate or for cleaning. And because our tap water is not so good, these distillers tend to build up a lot of sediment inside them, and that sediment eventually will get into the distilled water. So you really have to clean the distiller every now and then. So I'm going to cover cleaning the distiller now with you, but at the end of the video, I'm going to show you a way that you don't have to clean the distiller, or at least don't have to clean it as much. So stay tuned for that. Now, this is a typical household distiller. I think this one cost about $50-something, something like that. And just basically, most of you probably have a distiller, already know how this works. And I've done distilled videos before, distilled water videos before. You fill the chamber up to the line with water. You plug the thing in and you let it cook away. And the water goes into the top of this thing. This is a nice clean top, by the way. And I'll show you how I keep this looking this way. Now, steam will go under this lip and then go through the coils that are in here. There's a fan on top which cools the vapor down that's in the coils. And then it drips out of the piece here in the front. Now, my piece here in the front, I can't pull it off, has nothing in it. I've removed the carbon filter from that. I don't really need the carbon filter for it. It's basically to remove any kind of strange taste that you might have. But if you distilled your water correctly and your machine is clean, you do not need the carbon filter in here at the end. And especially if you use my method that I'm going to talk about at the end of the video, you certainly don't need any carbon filtration at all. So how do we clean this distiller? Like if you got a lot of sediment on the bottom of your distiller, the bottom of this distiller is actually fairly clean, as you can see. That's because of the way I do it. But, I mean, this can get really dark, black, and caked up on the inside. That's no good because what's going to happen is that stuff is going to vaporize, believe it or not. Yes, these distillers get really hot on the bottom, and as the water level gets low, they can vaporize those particles and go into your end solution. But I have a trick for that too, which I'll show you. But let's get to the distilling, cleaning part. You're going to need white vinegar. White vinegar is relatively inexpensive. Now, what I usually do when I have to clean it is what I call the mild way of cleaning it. I will use a cup, put a cup of white vinegar in here. I will dump it into the distiller. Then fill the distiller up to the water mark, and then let that cook for about 2 hours, 2.5 hours. Don't want to let it cook all the way to the end. Then I will dump that water out. I will see how much of the crap I've gotten off on the bottom of the distiller. And if the stuff still remains in there that's on the bottom of the distiller, I will do it again a second time. Now, if you've got a lot of crap on the bottom of that distiller because your tap water is really, really bad, then you're going to have to use a lot more. What you're going to have to do is actually probably use one of these things, fill your distiller 50% with vinegar, I know it's a lot, and then the rest with water, and cook it for another 2 hours, 2.5 hours or so. Then shut the thing off, let it cool down, and then empty it out and clean it. If you do it regularly, you won't need to do the strong method. I've never used the strong method on my stuff, but that brings us to why my distiller, which I use many times a week, it looks pristinely clean here and inside. The first thing I do is I pre-filter my tap water before I put it in the distiller. And I do that with this is one of these, this is a zero water pitcher filter. They're not that expensive, and if you just use it for your distiller, it'll work out fine. You fill it with your tap water, it goes through this super filter here, And this will clean out 90% of the sediment that is in your water, which now will be trapped in the filter here instead of being trapped in your distiller. And then I will fill the distiller with this water. You don't have to use a zero water filter. You can use any of those pitcher water filters. They'll work fine. I use RO water, and I've done a video on that, filling your distiller with reverse osmosis water, because I have our reverse osmosis water here for the laboratory. So I don't need to use the zero water filter, but if I didn't have a reverse osmosis filter, I would be using this zero water filter, because I have well water and it is loaded with contaminants. And ideally, my well water is actually better than most people's city water. My well water comes in at 110 parts per million, and the city water measures 350 parts per million. And believe it or not, that's considered okay for drinking. Now the coils up here, you really can't clean the coils up here. They're in the sealed unit. So if your distiller has gotten to the point where the coils inside here, the cooling coils, have become corroded, and there's no way, and you can't get rid of the taste or the smell that comes out of your distiller, you're just going to have to get a new distiller. That's the best way. So how do we prevent the sediment from caking onto the bottom of the distiller? And there's a real simple way of doing it. That is to turn the distiller off before it runs out of water. It not only prevents the sensor from burning out on these cheap distillers, it also will prevent the sediment from baking itself into the bottom of the distiller. You saw how clean the bottom of my distiller is. And that's because this distiller takes about 4 hours to distill a gallon of water. I will turn this off at 3 hours and 30 minutes, and the distiller shuts down, leaving me about 1 inch of water on the bottom, and I just dump that water out. We really don't want to boil all the water away anyway. Really, if your tap water is really yucky, you're going to get a lot of concentrated stuff down there, and it's possible that will aerosolize and wind up in the output. So how do you turn it off? Well, you could just manually use a watch and turn it off, but I'm very bad like that. I forget that the things are on, and it will just keep cooking and cooking. So I use timers. This is a 3-prong timer, and I'll just set this for 3 hours and 30 minutes, turn the thing on, and not worry about it. 3 hours and 30 minutes, it goes off. But that's the like almost a manual method. A better method is one of these things. These are one of these wireless devices that are hooked up to my Amazon Alexa system, and I will just ask her to turn the distiller on for 3 hours and 30 minutes. And you know what? 3 hours and 30 minutes later, she turns it off for me automatically. Absolutely fantastic. Well, many of you people have these systems in your homes, and if you do, this is a great way to do it. The device can handle the current very nicely and works fine. I'm Tom, Alchemy Wizard. I will talk to all of you again soon.